I'm going to show how to make a potato bin. Most potato bins sit vertical. This one is low profile, more like a chest. It's perfect for those who have a pantry. It can slide right underneath the bottom shelf. I used 1x12 lumber. The length depends on how wide you want your bin. My bin is 32 inches wide, so I will start off by cutting two boards that are 32 inches in length. It's also a good idea to sand each piece as you go along. The two pieces I start with is the bottom and the back. Wherever I decide to bind together with screws, I will mark a guideline. It is within this area that I could drill pilot holes that will receive the screws. These pre-drilled holes will lower the risk of splitting the lumber on the edge. I then take a larger bit and just barely drill into the top of each hole, just deep enough to countersink the head of a screw. Using wood glue, I apply a liberal amount on the edge of the board. And then I will screw the pieces together. I will use this technique to bind each piece together throughout this project. Next, I will create the sides. The bottom edge will be marked at 12 inches. The front edge will be marked at 7 inches in height. The top back edge will be marked at 3 inches. Using a straight edge, strike a line between the 7-inch mark and the 3-inch mark. These are the lines you will cut in order to make the side piece. Repeat this process with a second piece. Check each side for square. Using the technique I showed earlier, mark the bottom edge and the back edge with your guidelines. Then drill your pilot holes and finally your countersink holes using a larger bit. You will now glue and screw the side on, making sure it is square as you go along. Repeat this process on the other end with the other side piece. You will now create a piece for the front by measuring the width and the height of the front edge. Mine is 32 inches wide and 7 inches in height. Hold the board in place and check for square. You will want the angle of the side to continue through the top edge of the front board. You can accomplish this by taking a straight edge and striking a mark. Match this angle with your saw blade and cut off the edge. Once again, you will check this board for square, and then you will set it aside and begin making your partitions. The easiest way to make a partition is to set a board on edge on the inside of the box next to the side piece. Then simply trace around the side, marking a line to cut. Once you have this cut out, you can use it as a pattern and trace out as many partitions as you please. Using a square, mark the desired placement of each partition. Now, using the same technique as I did on the other pieces, I will drill my pilot holes. This will take the guesswork out of screw placement when putting in the partitions. Don't forget to go back and make countersink holes using a larger bit. Glue and screw in each partition, making sure it is square as you go along. Once the partitions are in place, you can now add the front piece. Apply a liberal amount of wood glue to the edges. Instead of pilot holes and screws, I like to use finishing nails. I do this because it's the front side of the box, that is, the side that's displayed. A countersunk finishing nail is a lot easier to hide than a countersunk screw. It'll make it a lot easier to dress up its appearance. I can now cut the board for the top piece. Mine's going to measure 32 inches by 3 3/4 inches. I will check the board for square and then place it using wood glue and finishing nails. To make the lid, I simply lay a 1x12 over the opening. I strike a mark under this board on the overlapping edge. By cutting along this mark, you should have a perfect size lid. You can now fill in the nail holes and the screw holes using wood putty. Now would be a good time to drill holes on the back side. Potato bins need a lot of airflow so that the vegetables on the inside don't spoil and mildew. I use a large Forstner bit to make these holes. I can now install the hinges for the lid. Mark the screw holes of each hinge. Place in the edge of the hinge 3 to 4 inches from each end. Secure the hinges on the top board, and then to the lid. You could also add a handle to the bottom edge. You will need to remove this hardware if you plan on staining or painting the bin. Make sure the box has been sanded with fine grit sandpaper before the final finish.